The Legislative Council passes the third reading of the Safeguarding National Security Bill. A power line under repair in Yuen Long falls onto a minibus without any injuries. And Russia marks the 10th anniversary of the annexation of Crimea. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. The Legislative Council passed the third reading of the Safeguarding National Security Bill. That marks the completion of the legislation on Article 23 of the Basic Law with a fast-track process. The bill will be gazetted and take effect this Saturday.
有89人出席，有89位贊成。
89 present, 89 for. Unanimous, carried. I declare the motion passed. Safeguarding National Security Bill.
With 89 votes in favor, no one against, and 0 abstaining, the Legislative Council approved the bill. In the rare move, Legislative President Andrew Leung also cast his vote in favor of the bill. Chief Executive John Lee also went to the legislature, delivering a speech stressing the historic moment of the bill's passage, which is overdue for 26 years, 8 months, and 19 days. Earlier today, lawmakers passed the second reading of the bill after 7 hours of scrutiny. The bill's first reading was conducted less than 2 weeks ago on March 8th.
恢復維護國家安全條例草案嘅二讀辯論。
Resuming the second reading, the Legislative Council continued the legislative process under Article 23 of the Basic Law in a swift manner. All 89 lawmakers attended the meeting. Everyone except LegCo President Andrew Leung spoke in support of the local security law. They include New People's Party Chairwoman Regina Ip, who helmed the previous Article 23 legislation effort as Secretary for Security back in 2003.
If we had legislated, I believe there wouldn't be 79 days of occupying Central back in 2014. In 2019, there were also violent acts. People would like to overturn the government. I'm very glad to see that we are in the final stretch of the legislation so that we can fulfill our duty.
Sari Lee of the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong spoke in English, saying the international community should be able to understand the necessity of the security law.
The drafting of the bill have made reference to the relevant law on most foreign jurisdictions, with, of course, its own unique characteristic. National security law is important to one country as that to the other country throughout the century. There is no exception to the Chinese sovereignty.
Political party leaders and representatives of various sectors also threw their weight behind the bill.
There is this table that compares the different national security offenses and penalties in different countries, so you see which laws are stricter and harsher. Now, the U.S. and Western powers, the more they speak on the bill, the more that shows how shameless they are.
Article 23 of the Basic Law allows Hong Kong to have its own national security law and implementation mechanism. This also highlights the respect for the people of Hong Kong. It's very rare that the government needs to invoke the Safeguarding National Security Law. This will be something shameful, also harms the spirit of the people. In endangering national security and protecting media freedoms, a balance has been struck.
Joining in unison was Tik Chi-yun, the only non-establishment lawmaker.
People say this is a historic moment. I agree. Once our country is safe, then we can act with greater assurance in pursuing our development. It's like we're finally spreading our wings and soaring to the skies.
Most lawmakers spoke less than 5 minutes and did not reach the maximum 10-minute speaking time allowed before a vote on the motion. Secretary for Security Chris Tang added, Hong Kong's Article 23 can help perfect the national security law system.
贊成嘅請舉手。
Lawmakers' debates in the second reading of the bill took around 7 hours to complete. The Safeguarding National Security Bill covers 181 clauses encompassing 5 types of offenses. Some can lead to a maximum sentence of life imprisonment, but some other offenses that drew concern have come with clauses of exemptions, such as the disclosure of state secrets. Hong Kong's national security legislation targets 5 types of crime. Their charges must involve the intent to commit the crime. Penalties are usually more severe when foreign forces are involved. Offences such as treason and insurrection entail the heaviest sentences. Collusion with foreign forces, damaging or weakening of public infrastructure facilities of the state or the SAR government can lead to a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. Treason and insurrection cover the intention to endanger national sovereignty and unity with a use or threat to use force. Any Chinese citizens who know that another person has committed, is committing, or is about to commit the offence of treason must disclose that to the police or face a prison term of up to 14 years. Under the bill, actions with intent to incite hatred against the central and Hong Kong governments, as well as other residents, can lead to imprisonment of up to 10 years. On concerns over committing the crimes accidentally, the bill states that it won't be a crime if the intention is to raise opinions to improve the situation. On the unlawful disclosure of state secrets, including secrets related to the economy, technology, and social development, the unlawful acquisition, possession, and disclosure of the information all constitute a crime with a maximum prison term of 3 to 10 years. Exemptions are granted, though, when the aim of disclosure is to bring to light issues that can seriously affect the government's function or threaten public order, safety, and health. The whistleblower should also consider any possible alternative ways to address the situation before making the disclosure. Exemptions, too, for the defendant who can prove that he or she doesn't know the information is a state secret, or when the person has handed the secrets to the police. Another concern, the newly included external interference offence that has no exemptions. The government stressed the crimes have to fulfill all 3 elements, including collaborating with external forces to interfere with intent through improper means. In the government's proposed amendments, a new clause has also been included to allow the chief executive in council to implement new national security orders by way of subsidiary legislation. The passing of the bill marks the end of a long and sometimes painful journey to enact the national security law under Article 23 of the Basic Law. Timothy Lee takes a look back.
The Basic Law, promulgated in 1990, states that Hong Kong shall enact laws on its own to safeguard national security. The Hong Kong government first attempted the legislative process 5 years after the handover in 2003. Current lawmaker Regina Ip was the Secretary for Security at the time. She was the prime mover of the bill, and she said crimes that threaten national security do not concern the everyday life of residents. But strong concerns were expressed during the 3-month consultation period, as Ip actively explained and promoted the bill. The bill was gazetted in February 2003, kick-starting the legislative process. Concerns remain. The Article 23 concern group formed by some legal professionals proposed more than 100 amendments. And then on July 1st the same year, a protest rally involving 500,000 people. After the protest march, Chief Executive Tung Chee-hwa amended the bill and added public interest defense to the bill. But just before the bill's second reading at LegCo, Liberal Party lawmaker James Tien resigned from the Executive Council, citing his opposition to the bill. Falling short of votes to pass the bill without the Liberal Party's support, the government postponed the second reading. Regina Ip resigned as Security Secretary, citing personal reasons. The government withdrew the bill in September. All the chief executives since Tung had stated it's Hong Kong's constitutional duty to legislate on Article 23, but did not proceed further. The city has since experienced several periods of turmoil, including the Occupy Central movement in 2014. The Hong Kong riots in 2016, and the social unrest related to the anti-extradition bill in 2019. In June 2020, the Hong Kong National Security Law was passed in Beijing, but it did not cover all national security areas specified in Article 23. And on January 30th this year, the Hong Kong SAR government announced that it was launching the legislative process with a 1-month consultation period. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
An overhead power line in Yuen Long fell and damaged a lamppost and minibus when it was being repaired by CLP contractors. No one was injured. The collapse also led to 68 nearby households experiencing power supply problems. Photos posted on social media show the damaged lamppost and power line at the Tam Mei section of Castle Peak Road. The incident occurred at around 12:20 p.m. when a CLP spokesperson said a contractor was conducting repair work. The power line, which was not transmitting electricity at the time, collapsed and struck a lamppost at the Ao interchange. A nearby power line and a vehicle traveling at the junction were also damaged. Power supply was fully restored at around 2 p.m. Technicians are currently investigating the cause of the collapse. Foreign Minister Wang Yi has arrived in Canberra, the federal capital of Australia, on the second leg of his trip to two oceanic countries. The visit comes as China is reviewing tariffs on Australian wine amid the warming up of relations between the two countries. Sakura Ip reports from Canberra in Australia.
After staying in New Zealand for 2 days, next on Foreign Minister Wang Yi's itinerary is a 2-day visit to Australia. His first stop, Canberra, the federal capital of Australia. Being Australia's largest trading partner, China exports electrical and mechanical machinery, textile products and toys to Australia, and imports iron ore, coal and barley from the country. In 2022, bilateral trade volume reached $220.9 billion. But back in 2020, relations between the two countries soured over calls for a probe into the origin of the coronavirus. China imposed trade restrictions on various Australian goods, such as coal, barley and lobsters. China also imposed anti-dumping tariff on up to 218% on Australian wine in March 2021. After 3 years of frosty antagonism, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese paid an ice-breaking visit to China in November last year. Now, Albanese said China's tariff on Australian wine would be among the topics of discussions in his meeting with Wang Yi. John Lim, an academic in the Department of History at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, said the resumption of trade and personnel exchanges will have positive effects on relations between the two countries. Last year, China lifted restriction on Australian coal. An Australian scholar believes it will help China's economic recovery.
Chinese economy suffered in terms of the way it restricted coal imports. Australian coal, which is very good for the industrial process, had to be provided to China through a third party, which of course increases the price. So direct trade between Australia and China on iron ore and coal is better for China.
During the visit to Australia, Foreign Minister Wang Yi will hold the 7th China-Australia Foreign and Strategic Dialogue with Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong. Sakura Yip, TVB News, Canberra.
And still ahead, Israel claims its troops apprehend terrorist suspects and seize weapons at the Al-Shifa hospital compound. And artifacts from Beijing's Old Summer Palace now on display at the Hong Kong Palace Museum. Welcome back. Israel will send a team to Washington after a phone call between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Joe Biden. They'll discuss how Israel's war with Hamas should continue, with the U.S. likely to press hard for safety guarantees for civilians in Rafah. More than 90 Palestinians have been killed in the last 24 hours, according to Gaza health officials, as the Israeli military continues to strike several areas of the Strip, including the Al-Shifa hospital. David Garrett reports.
Smoke from an Israeli airstrike not far from the Al-Shifa hospital as Israeli troops storm the medical complex. A woman in an orange headscarf cradles her husband's dead body. She yells for help amid rubble. Palestinians rush to her aid. There is devastation all around. Israel Defense Forces released more pictures of what they say are operations at Al-Shifa. A soldier takes from the office of the general director to a room which he says is used by Hamas. They seized grenades, bullets and money after cracking open a safe. The IDF accuses Hamas of using the facility as cover. They say they killed 20 gunmen and apprehended many others. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told Joe Biden in a phone call an Israeli victory is the complete destruction of Hamas. That's why his forces went back into the hospital and are planning a massive ground offensive in Rafah.
The President told the Prime Minister again today that we share the goal of defeating Hamas. But we just believe you need a coherent and sustainable strategy to make that happen. And anytime I hear an argument that says, if you don't smash into Rafah, you can't defeat Hamas, I say that is a straw man. Our view is that there are ways for Israel to prevail in this conflict, to secure its long-term future, to end the terror threat from Gaza, and not smash into Rafah. That's what we're going to present in this integrated way when this team comes.
With more than 1 million Palestinians in and around Rafah already in desperate need, Biden told Netanyahu he cannot succeed without an integrated humanitarian plan. A report urged Israel to be more flexible. A World Food Programme investigation found virtually everyone in Gaza is struggling for food. It said a third of the population are experiencing catastrophic hunger and warned if Israel broadens the attack on Rafah, half the population will starve. The UN coordinator said sporadic aid drops and the possibility of a makeshift port are merely a temporary solution.
The only real way to get heavy loads of material, food and others into all parts of Gaza would only be by road. Air and maritime are not alternatives. They're probably additions to the roads, but they can't be seen as alternatives.
Children filmed last week banging pots and pans asking for food. The UN says they are still waiting, facing starvation, and there is a month to save them. David Garrett, TVB News.
President Xi Jinping congratulated Vladimir Putin on Monday for winning another term as Russian president, saying that China will maintain close communication with Russia to promote their partnership. A day after securing another 6-year term, President Putin attended a concert on Red Square to mark the 10th anniversary of his country's annexation of Crimea from Ukraine. Tracy Furness has more.
Vladimirovich Putin!
President Putin walked onto the stage at the anniversary concert with the 3 candidates who ran against him at last weekend's presidential election, where Putin won a landslide victory of almost 88% of the votes. Speaking to the flag-waving crowd at the concert, Putin said the Ukrainian regions Russia took control of in 2022 had wanted to join Russia together with Crimea 10 years before, but their path had been more difficult and tragic. A motorcade of the Night Wolves biker club, known for supporting President Putin, rode through Crimea's largest city, Sevastopol, to mark the anniversary, while other celebrations took place across the Crimean peninsula, such as stage shows and marches. The quick, bloodless seizure of the diamond-shaped peninsula, home to Russia's Black Sea Fleet and a popular holiday site, touched off a wave of patriotism and sent Putin's popularity soaring. This Sevastopol couple say they don't regret their choice to join Russia. Our life has changed a lot for the better. The city has become much cleaner. Everything has become more cultural. Medicine has become better in all respects. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky held talks in Kyiv Monday with a U.S. delegation, including Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Zelensky thanked the U.S. for support over Russia's invasion of his country, even as the Kremlin's forces have made progress on the battlefield. This as $48 billion worth of aid that Ukraine desperately needs, especially artillery shells and air defense systems, is being held up in Washington.
We are thankful for all this 2 years support from Congress of the United States. And now this is very challenging period for Ukraine and also in the United States. We wanted very much to hear what do you think about it, what do you think about support. So future support.
Putin has said that Moscow will not relent in its invasion of Ukraine and plans to create a buffer zone to help protect against long-range Ukrainian strikes and cross-border raids. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Around 200 artifacts from Beijing's All-Summer Palace have gone on display at the Hong Kong Palace Museum. The precious items are displayed in 5 exhibitions, which contain themes such as the imperial family and seasonal festivals. The event was organized under a joint effort of the Hong Kong Palace Museum, the Beijing Palace Museum, and the Yuanming Yuan Administration Office of Haidian District in Beijing. The Qing-era treasures will be available for public view starting today until the 12th of August. Admission tickets cost $150. Children, students, and those aged above 60 can enter half price. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.